Hello and welcome to Indiepocalypse Radio After Dark Edition, as it's what once was the usual schedule has now become the late night schedule, or perhaps more technically speaking, has become the early day schedule for guests who certainly cannot do 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is like, I don't know, 2 a.m.
3 a.m.
3
3 a.m. for me, which is either very late night or very early morning.
Yes, I've gotten up at 3 a.m. before to go to work.
Uh, uh,
It's not ideal, but I've lived that life. So now you've just heard our one and only guest today. I got excited about I got to change my. Oh, who am I? Right, I'm Andrew. I'm the host here of Indiepocalypse. I'm introducing my guest before I introduce myself. I feel like that's in the PEMDAS of radio hosting. That's out of sequence. I do all the Indiepocalypse stuff, and then I host Indiepocalypse, being a curated monthly bundle of indie games. Speaking of Indiepocalypse, you may know this guest from Indiepocalypse, or likely also from the world of games outside of Indiepocalypse. But within this realm, to contextualize it, with issue 14, the second commissioned game, very early on in those halcyon days of what is now just kind of a standard. It's NPC Casey. Hello, how are you doing today?
for me, only 8 a.m. and I had to set an alarm to remind myself to wake up. I stayed up too late last night playing Splatoon.
I I cannot get up late anymore. I've tried.
I mean, that's very good, very healthy.
It's called a
Oh,
40-hour a week, 9 to 5.
uh,
I just
very
kind
regular, healthy
yeah,
schedule.
right. I just kind of like it's a weekend. I can sleep in, and my body's like, sleep in. You mean
No.
6 o'clock, right? And I'm like, no, no. But anyway, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Pretty good, I think. It's
That's
been a very busy couple of months, but finally, like I've released a couple of games, but finally I'm in the post-release phase where I can figure out what I want to do next and play games again for the first time in a couple of months as well.
yeah. I've just been recently playing games that like outside the context of what I play for
Hmm.
Indiepocalypse. I myself have recently just started playing video games again, if you believe it.
No, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because when you're in the process of creating stuff, and I'm like for indie populace as well, I'm sure you don't actually get to imbibe game culture in the same way because you're looking at it specifically for making stuff or collecting,
yeah,
creating a collection. And then when you actually just play for the fun of it, it's a very different experience.
right. Because I was like, it feels weird to play like kind of like this kind of alternative micro indie stuff that Indiepocalypse trades in, because I like my
Mm.
brain just goes to a different space. But then I also didn't want to like sit down and like when was the last time I bought video games?
Uh,
But then I was like, oh, someone was like, hey, Game Pass is $2, and I was like, I guess.
I hear there's a lot of stuff on that. I haven't tried it myself though.
Yeah. No, listen, it's one of those weird things. Oh, I'm a very weird edge case where things like Game Pass are very bad for the health of the industry
Mm,
overall. But also, I
mm,
buy a lot of. I mean, I run into Apocalypse, so I spend a lot of
mm.
money on games. In the same way, like I use Spotify, but I also buy a bunch of music on Bandcamp.
I
It's
feel
a
like you just have to find the balance where obviously we are all participating in capitalism in some
yeah,
way, but if you're also trying your best to like me, I also am mostly Bandcamp.
yeah,
But if you need to find some music that's not on Bandcamp and is on Spotify, you're still doing better than not listening to that
yeah.
artist at all.
And honestly, Spotify is so much easier to stream on the go than Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, I think ended streaming last year to their
Yeah,
app last
yeah.
year, but
That's it's not perfect, but anyway,
mm,
but it's kind of how it is. but it's been weird to get back into it. But then I also like I'm just playing like weird B tier stuff. I like B tier stuff a lot. I like that kind of like very middle of the road things. I think they're neat. I think there's interesting ideas that happen in it sometimes.
I think experimentation going on in B tier because I don't think we need to make the perfect X example of genre.
Yeah.
You can kind of play around and be like, this didn't work out completely, but you can see the seeds of some cool ideas.
Yeah. And I've been playing recently. It's like some, I guess you would call them legacy works in a way. Like I played the that Dragon Quest Minecraft game. And
builders.
yes, exactly. And it had like, this is my experience with Dragon Quest in general. It had like a very weirdly poignant moment in it that like characters die and then you have to like build a coffin and then bury them.
Huh.
And it's like all within the mechanics of the game because it's a building game. But it was very, very weird, this idea of this. I feel like Dragon Quest does that sometimes in general.
Like Minecraft building a coffin.
Yes, right. You like, because like all the mechanics are there for carrying like unconscious allies to safety.
Right. But
and placing them in the beds, and coffins are basically just beds within the game. So
I mean, technically, yes.
Yeah.
Coffins are technically beds. But...
Right. Vampires. I'll agree. But before we get sidetracked on video games,
yes.
So tell me a little bit about, let's say, first of all, the game I don't think, did I say it? Did I say A Wheel Without a View? A Wheel Without a View. Tell me a little bit about A Wheel Without a View.
Right. That was in 2020? I'm trying to remember exactly.
Yeah, it kind of like probably 2020 because it would have been coming out in 2021, but I probably would have contacted you in 2020.
Right. It just feels so long ago because I know it was sometime during the pandemic, but I can't understand when stuff is happening anymore.
Right. There's a kind of like that very fuzzy 2 years.
Yeah, so it's a game that was made and like completely idealized within the pandemic times. So it's just, I couldn't, like at the time I think I wasn't really going outside very much at all. So I envisioned this game where you talk to people over a very, like you have to actually talk to people over a series of days in real life time, but in a video game. Sort of like you're going out to talk to people. I think I just made it because I wanted to go out and talk to people normally, and I didn't have that in 2020.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot like you had an interview article recently, like within like the past week or so, and that's very resonant to the idea of you making games to express ideas that you want to express, or
Yes.
I think it is very beneficial to it. This is a weird thing to say, perhaps, but I think what is holding the games as a medium back the most is that people wanting to make games because they want to make games. If that makes sense.
I completely agree. I feel that like it's making games for the purpose of making games rather than actually using games as a medium to get what you want to say out.
Right.
It's like if somebody wanted to write a book only because they wanted to write a book, not because they wanted to tell a story.
Yeah,
it just ends up with something like of nothingness.
Right. They're like, I want to write a novel, so I'm going to think about the mechanics of novels.
Yeah. I want to organize the structure in this way or something.
Right. I'm going to go back and like read, Don Quixote and understand the origins of novels.
Right, when they make games for some reason.
Right.
It's very specific. Like, we want to make games in this kind of style, and you have people putting together the mood boards of like, this is what we want the game to be like, and they fill in the spaces that way rather than coming from an idea and then moving to the game.
Right, and so often when they include narratives and stories, so many times that's why they feel so like disjointed,
Like second thought where it's probably not that they built it around the narrative. They just thought that this is a game that you need something to move the story, so we will put in a story.
And it's like never the twain shall meet. They are these two distinct entities.
Narrative designers, game designers not working under the same roof.
Right, right. That's why I got so wrapped up in that coffin thing because it was like, oh,
Build Minecraft, build blocks for your coffin for
right,
your friends.
exactly.
Proud of them.
It was taking the mechanics of the game and like using them to tell a story.
Mm.
And I guess that's in some ways that whole the Dragon Quest that but thou must sort of philosophy, you know, of
Dragon
make
Quest is usually very formulaic, isn't it?
yeah,
Whereas, like, you find the 4 gems or whatever it is, then you become the hero.
yeah.
And I don't know what else. Sorry.
No, that is like I grew up very much like I was a Final Fantasy kid because they were cooler and they had stories and they didn't have just like weird, cute Toriyama animals or whatever.
Yeah, you cry about the characters and stuff because you kind of like you see a lot of them. I think in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but there were always like these weird. When I was playing Dragon Quest, when I went back, like I bought all these Dragon Quest games at some point when I was building out a video game collection. Maybe I should play them. And there are like a number of like these kind of weird moments to it, like how in the first one when you just like you can say the guy's like, "Do you want to join me?" The evil lord is like, "You should join me," and you can join him, and then the game overs you.
Oh.
And just other like just kind of like weird. But anyway, this is not a Dragon Quest or podcast. As much as I could talk about Dragon Quest for a little while, but it's neat. I think it's neat. But you do kill a lot of slimes.
They're so cute, but I could talk about that for very long. I think so. I will cut
The
myself off.
slimes and how cute they are.
No, they're just like they're the beginning. I will say one thing and I'll stop myself because it's like the first monster you encounter, right?
Yeah.
So they made it because by making it this like cute slime with a cute face, they really set the tone. I think for the Dragon Quest series where it's lighthearted.
Yeah,
and going in, you're not going to be like killing off like real animal-like monsters,
right?
Which sets a very fantasy tone.
Yeah, it is of that very like adventure style, like that. I think like the Toriyama was probably working in around that time. That's probably like Dragon Ball era,
right?
Toriyama back when there was like weird animal guys all the time, and it was more an adventure book or something. I'm not a Dragon Ball historian. I'll be honest. My experience is mostly being a kid and seeing out of sequence episodes on TV. Back when anime in the US was not quite the same thing it is now.
Like that's an experience that people don't really have now, huh? Where you watch stuff when it's available, and then you watch a lot of random shows because it's the only thing on TV at the time.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to watch the Cell Saga because that's the only one Toonami ever airs. So this is the only context I have for these characters. I can't just like boot up Crunchyroll and watch 9,000 Dragon Ball episodes or whatever.
It'd be cool if we could do something like that for games, though, where randomly it's like, this is the only game available now, so either you play it or you play nothing.
Yeah, let's bring back to Satellaview. Get it all back in business. There is, I think, a lot of a kind of like alternative, like presentation for games. You know?
I was thinking if you could do an online gallery. Like I'm not experienced enough in netcode to make this at all, so a lot of my ideas are like, if only I could do it. But if you could have an online gallery where only say like 3 people are allowed to play the game at a time, and if 3 other people are in this room, you can't enjoy it, or like stuff like that. And instead you have to sit in like a waiting room, and you might be able to like chat with other people, but that's it. Or you can watch people, sort of like, you know, when you go to a gallery and you see somebody looking at the painting, and you're like, oh, the guy in front has been there for 10 minutes, like sort of feeling, but in a game.
Yeah, and there's like that's kind of like conventions, but also like the games at conventions are very different usually.
Right.
They're very I usually have the luxury of when I tend to be sandwiched between the noisiest kind of multiplayer and or VR games.
Yeah. I went to a game convention at the beginning of August, and I realized that game conventions are not really a good fit for my game.
Right, yes. Here are these quiet, personal visual novels.
Yeah, I was next to the stage where they were doing like instrumental lives, and I'm like,
Yes.
wow, this is not working out.
Right. Because it's like, oh, these games are kind of like, you can kind of demo them, but they're sort of best as like full narratives, you know.
They don't play well in 5 minutes at all.
No, you know.
Like,
I've started to think of like longer video games. Like mentally, I've been thinking of them as more like TV shows, you know, where it's like, oh no, I mean, especially when they're actually like strictly chaptered out.
right.
In terms of like, oh well, okay, whatever. The Evil Within is going to take me 16 hours to play, but I don't have to play it all in one sitting.
That's true. Like, you can watch that over 17 nights, 17 episodes on TV.
Yeah, right. I'll just do a chapter a night and experience it that way or something.
But when you put it that way, it's also something that, like, for games, yes, that works for a lot of games where you can demo 5 minutes, but people don't do like TV show conventions in the same way, or like book conventions even.
Yeah, games are such a weird little thing.
Like for comics, the great thing about them, like when you go buy a zine, you can flip through it. You can't flip through a game, is what I was thinking.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Is there a way to like present a visual novel like a zine, where you flip through a couple of scenes and like see if you like it?
Right, I guess you could, because it's just like, especially if you're no, I'm not like a Red Pie expert, but I mean, I think it's like you could just point to you just like rewrite the sequence, right? You just like make a special one that's like, this is the path now. Instead of going to this room, it goes to this room, goes to this, right?
Just enjoy a couple of like quick, like 1 minute of each scene I might want you to look at or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like a truncated version. Kind of
but
like,
also, that would not go well at a game convention.
No, it would be confusing.
It would be very confusing. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, because you're supposed to kind of, I mean, it's confusing. I feel like visual novels, when I've shown like shorter narrative games, they're like extremely hit or miss. But
yeah,
they have like, or rather, they miss a lot more than they hit. But when they hit, they usually hit very hard. Because especially like when I've had like kids come up and like. Ooh. There's nothing here for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think the Indiepocalypse selection is very kid friendly.
No, yeah. Like someone on Twitter had asked me, he's like, "Oh, you should make like a version that's like kid friendly," or like what would be.
I mean, like that's fine if you want to, but it's not. It doesn't seem like that's a goal.
No, it wasn't. Or like I think he said something. I'm misconstruing. I think he said something like, what would be a good intro for kids? Kind of like, because the games are simple and short. I'm like,
I mean, it's true that a lot of them are short and easy functionally to play, but I feel like a lot of the concepts covered in the stuff is a little bit.
Yes.
A lot.
Right. Yeah, you could, Taylor McHugh's games are very easy to play.
Although they're amazing, but I would not recommend that to a 5-year-old.
Yes, right. Yes, her latest game I would not recommend to listen, it might help a 5-year-old at some point, but I would not recommend it to 5-year-olds. Like,
if somebody were to say, like, what would your recommendation as an issue for a kid to be, I just say wait for the kid to grow up a couple of years first.
Right.
That's the recommendation.
Yes, I think my what I realized is like, there is some precocious teens that are gonna really love Indiepocalypse. They'll be
that's
like,
awesome though. But also,
that's definitely what I hope. Because I think
that might be part of a trend where people are very keen on making stuff that's an audience that has an audience that includes everyone. But I feel like you can have media that isn't for everyone though. Like, I'm sorry, like my games are definitely not for a lot of people, and that's
no
me.
No, but you also have like a strong audience, and you have a lot of people who are just like, here's a new NBC KC game, I gotta show up for it,
Yeah. But I also feel sometimes people expect a certain kind of game from me.
Right.
I've had a lot of people. So I recently released a game called A Pet Shop After Dark, and it's very like tonally different from some
Yeah.
of my other games. So I've seen people tweeting like, "Oh, a new game from the A Year of Springs dev," and I'm like, "Don't go into this game thinking it's gonna be like A Year of Springs. You're going to be severely disappointed."
Yes. I had a movie night with a friend the other night, and we watched both. We back to back. We watched Halloween and Big Trouble in Little China, and it's just like, yes, those are by the same director.
It's true. It's true.
But they're like so tonally, and I think that's like, yeah, directors and artists, like creators, can have like they can want to do a lot of different stuff, and they get drawn to different works, and that's, I think that's kind of like when art is personal. It's like, I mean, you told what you want to tell with the Year of Springs, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
How many times do you need to tell it? Or how many
If
versions
people do
of
be
it?
like, "Are you going to make a sequel?" I'm like, I probably won't.
Right.
It is done. That's
Right.
what it is. I'm going to make other stuff now.
Right. In the way, it being a trilogy was sort of like a sequel, or like the closest thing to like a sequel, you know. But like, yeah, it's the sequelization of art is very weird.
It's very like Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, the NPCKC cinematic universe.
I can only make stuff in this specific way or something.
Yes, it has the same characters. You have to always touch on this. You could never do anything different.
It's
How-
like,
how
I
dare you.
understand where it's easier to enjoy media where you already have a foot in, so you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think people need to step into different waters sometimes and try different things to see what else is out there.
Yeah, and going through like your lens, like maybe somebody is like, oh, I usually don't like horror or even mildly scary things, but then they like, oh, a Pet Shop After Dark kind of gets me into it, you know. And
The starter to horror games.
yeah, right. There's like, oh, maybe I didn't know what horror was, you know. Or like I thought horror was one thing, and I realized horror can be other things too.
Very common actually for horror, where people will be like, "Oh, I can't play horror games; they're not for me." But I feel like people might be imagining like a lot of jump scares and like
Yeah.
gore, but that's not all there is to horror. Like personally, I'm not a big fan of stuff that's really like violently horror.
Yeah.
But I like the stuff that makes you feel incredibly uncomfortable and you don't want to sit by yourself and
Yes.
think too much at night.
Yeah, I that was my growing up with horror, was like I thought horror in my mind, because of like when I grew up, my mind was horror equals slasher movies, you know.
That's
So-
what you see.
Right. So before I started trying other stuff, it was like my mind was like, oh, it's just shallow stuff where teens get killed by just some dude. But yeah, there is like horror that can be goreless and unsettling, and the horror of humanity, you know.
Actually, like horror is a very good genre for like specifically minority creators to explore
Yeah.
because it kind of tears down the borders you usually see. And I would much rather see more horror of the like coming from like queer creators where it's kind of like unsettling but from a different viewpoint than just another, oh, the teen girl gets killed in the woods.
Yeah, and it's also a way of like sneaking ideas into audiences'
Yes.
idea heads.
Because you're already like in that sort of unsettled state, and then
Yeah.
you're a lot more susceptible to understanding, oh, this was like a different viewpoint that I wouldn't have thought of normally, but because we're both in this together sort of
Yeah.
thing, it's like your brain just absorbs it.
Right. It's like, oh, because it's a werewolf and not
Yeah.
something else, like the ruling
Yes.
class. I understand
No.
slightly. Like, I like the idea of kind of, because people can be kind of stubborn, but you can like kind of sneak ideas past them.
Yeah, there's this visual novel that's not I would say psychological horror, but not like horror.
Yeah.
Like The House in Fata Morgana, I think is a great example of this, where it presents itself as a regular fantasy horror visual novel, but it's actually it uses that framework to talk a lot about societal issues and stuff like, because you mentioned werewolf and it's just like,
Yeah.
that's exactly it, but I don't want to talk about it too much for spoilers.
No, it's on my like, I should, because I have to get into the right mindsets. Like, if I want to sit down and play like a visual novel for a while, especially, I don't know if that one's kinetic or not, if it has choices in it.
Kinetic. I think there's like maybe 10 choices in the full game, and it's also very long.
Yes. You know, I've had people on the show tell me about Umineko before.
I think the whole Umineko Higurashi series is amazing, but I can't recommend it to everyone unless you are willing to dedicate hours.
Yes,
to
no, I similarly love Jean Dielman, but I'm like, I can't. How often can I tell someone, "Hey, sit around and watch this 4-hour movie where nothing happens"? But it sticks. It's like that movie is a movie I think about more often than not. Like that enters my brain more than almost any other movie. That and Phantom of the Paradise are the two movies I think about the most.
Very specific genre differences.
Yes. But yeah, no, it is like. But I think that's like it helps people to kind of to get back to the idea of like coming from not games. It helps to not study the medium you're working in.
Yeah, I think it also depends. I think a lot of people think of games as a very specific thing. Like a lot of people would say my games aren't games also.
Right, yes. Oh, yeah, right. Same with like no, your games are games because they have choices in them. It's kinetic.
No, but then all you do is click in them. Like
yes,
also
right.
I just read and click or whatever.
Yeah, that is. Listen, we don't need to knowledge it.
But like what you said about like taking from different media, if you only play games, then you're always going to make the same kind of thing. I think like if you play Dragon Quest and that's all you have for your framework of what you want to make, you're just gonna make hero RPG. That's it.
Right.
But if you take stuff like weird horror movies that are kind of like campy, and you put that into a game, it's a very different feel already.
Yeah, right. I if I can be a little mean for a second, I saw there's a Kickstarter going for a game that is like let's say it's an arts and crafts inspired role playing game. Inspired by a famous legacy platform holder character.
Right.
And I think about like the video game design philosophy that is find and replace Mario with your character's name.
Right. Now it's just like one brand and then slotted into game genre.
Right. You just like I mean, it could be a very fine game, but it feels like, I don't know, creatively bankrupt.
Yeah, no, it's like, I feel that because a lot of times I'll see things, and if all you can explain a game as is X character in X popular game, like, I don't understand what makes this game better than X popular game. Why do I want to consume? Or I guess in consumerism, you always want to consume more. So if you like X popular game, then you just want more like it.
Right. If I really love Paper Mario, I'm gonna play
everything that's Paper Mario.
Yes, I will play every indie game that is,
the same
small town paper RPG, paper monster RPG, paper this RPG.
The thing is, I understand that for game media journalism articles, describing it as X makes Y does make a lot more people click it, but often I think it's a disservice to the game, which is not just X in Paper Mario. There's a lot more to it, but that's the way it's written. Then when people play it, they're like, "This isn't Paper Mario. I didn't want to pay for this."
Yeah,
like,
right.
That really for the devs.
Right. How many articles are just how much game?
Mega Man.
Right. Or how much real estate is spent to? What if Mega Man was made in Unreal? And it's like, wow, so it looks boring, I guess. I feel the same way about like those ballpoint pen drawings that are just, like, hyper realistic.
Right. Like, it's very cool that you have the technical skill to do that. But that's all I really have to say about it.
Right, right. I couldn't pick it out from a lineup where I could like, if you put your work next to their work, I could pick your work out like 10 times out of 10.
I think like stuff like that where it's like, oh look, the graphics in here are so real. But if that's the only thing going for it, I'd rather take a photo.
Yes, right. I'm just I'm not a keen-eyed, but I kind of like, they peaked around the PS3 360. I don't think they've improved meaningfully that much since then.
I don't want to be like, old games are better or whatever, but
Yes.
I don't feel like a lot of the times that like remasters are better because the graphics are better either.
Right. No, it's like, I'm not a CRT purist. Also, I like big chunky blocks. I don't mind the big chunky blocks and like the hard lines. So also, let's be real, I'm not gonna own a CRT again anytime soon.
It's so big. It takes up so much space.
I was so glad to get rid of that.
Goodbye. Like, I have a computer monitor as my TV, and it's very flat. It takes up very little real estate in my already small home.
Yes. I have the benefit of living in small town America, which affords you a bit more space. But even like, I could carry my TV, which was like 2 to 3 times. Yeah, 2 to 3 times larger than any CRT I ever owned, and I carried it by myself, like down a flight of stairs. And then, yeah, okay, so I guess Mega Man looks a little better on a CRT, I suppose. Maybe.
I'm happy for the people who are specific about their choices of what they want in a pixel art game. They can enjoy what they want.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's all aesthetic choices. It's very hard to find like, oh, this is better than that,
It's all just what you like and what you don't like, and I think it's part of consumerism where you have to be like, the stuff I consume is better, so I want to consume more. So only this is the correct way to enjoy the pixel art NES games.
Right. There was it happened recently on Twitter.com. I saw people getting upset about like, oh no, like coming to the harsh defense of roguelikes because someone they've never heard of, that will never meet and will never hear from again, said that they didn't like roguelikes and that they didn't like the roguelike.
I think I saw that, and I'm like, why are people so angry? I didn't even see the original tweet.
Yeah.
I just saw people saying roguelikes are great. Why are you angry? And I'm like, I'm not angry. Why are you telling me I'm angry?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like people get upset over a person they don't know, will never interact with.
You're never going to meet this person again. You just, for some reason, really care about their opinion.
Right. Because it's that idea like your opinion can't be invalidated,
Yeah, but I think it's this weird thing where people think that you can't have differing opinions from
right, exactly.
anyone else.
the idea that's like, well, I don't like, this person says roguelikes are getting too, I think I have 2 questions when I play games that I often ask, and it's like, why is this game a roguelike? Why does this game have a crafting system?
Yes.
And I often I feel like both times, and whenever I often find myself asking that question and find myself thinking this game would be better if neither of those things were in the game.
Oh, okay. So here's my hot take. I didn't like Hades, and I think it'd be better if it were a visual novel.
I've never.
I just wanted to play the story. I didn't like the action. I didn't like the roguelike part of it. I just wanted to read the story, and I don't like that they locked the story into like random elements of the game. That's my hot take on Hades. I think it's a lovely game, and I'm glad it's popular.
Yes.
But I think it's only as popular as it is because it's a roguelike.
Right. Yes, because that's like what, their 4th or 5th game, and I loved Bastion and Transistor. And I didn't go further, but that's just me not playing video games. That's the only reason I didn't play Pyre and Hades. But can I talk to you as a visual novel developer about something for a second? It's very weird, the increasing how increasingly visual novel elements in games are kind of used as like a marketing tool, sort of.
It's true. No, I
Like,
see.
like,
What is
like
up
it,
with that?
like it feels like you will I will see. And now I pick on this game a lot on this show because it's just like a perfect example of a lot of things. But so Boyfriend Dungeon.
Ah,
I only
continue.
ever saw the visual novel elements of it. Only
Yes.
saw like that kind of visual novel style key art. That's
Mm.
all I saw about the game. And then like it wasn't until like deep into their whole content warning
Mm.
thing, which is a whole other issue, but it was the first time I saw what like the game looks like. You know.
Like actiony, and you have to actually go through dungeons.
Right, right. There are so many games now that feel like they are presenting the visual novel elements and like these character designs up front, and then there's like a hotel management sim whatever underneath. Like it could be any other game.
Times they also don't want to say it's a visual novel, but they're
Right.
taking all the elements of it. Just they don't want. It's essentially like Toki Memoriaru, where they have like a visual novel and a dating sim,
Yeah.
but they only want to talk. They want to show the visual novel, but only say it's a dating sim or something. I guess the other or a simulation game. They don't want to say
Yeah.
it's a visual novel because there's some like, ooh, it's a visual novel. There's no
Right.
gameplay, something stigma
Yeah.
with it.
Like I don't know. I mean, in the U.S. and I guess like probably broadly speaking, the English speaking world, visual novels also have a very specific kind of like weird relationship in games where
Yeah, people play. I've had people on Steam be like, "Where's the porn in One Night Hot Springs?" I'm like, "Sorry, wrong game.
right,
This-
right.
Wrong game.
Well,
This is not where you're going to find that."
you made a mistake because your game they could clearly tell it wasn't a joke visual novel, so
And so it must be porn.
so it must be a porn visual novel.
It was not, and people are like, I've had people comment be like, "Came for the porn. There was no porn." I'm like, I never indicated in any way that this
Right.
game was. Like,
Right. You may have alluded lightly to human bodies, which obviously
yeah, there
means
are bodies and characters, and it just I didn't realize that meant that it was suddenly going to be 18 plus content.
yeah. It's a very it's a very weird kind of like relationship that people have with visual novels, especially I
The
guess
thing
like
is, a lot of games are visual novels, just they don't say it.
right, yes, or they use or they crib a lot of what makes visual novels good, which is or what draws people to visual novels, which is usually character
People
writing.
wouldn't like Persona a lot. Like they wouldn't like Persona nearly as much as they do if there weren't the visual novel dating sim element. But people
Yeah.
don't want to say that they like visual novels for some reason.
Right. No, they love the very long grinding in dungeons. That's what draws them to it.
Of course.
The classical style of first. They're like, I wish it was first person. I love dungeons crawling so much.
I wish we had to level more to finish this game.
Yes, right. I wish I had to. I wish I couldn't fuse them. I wish I had to catch and raise every demon myself. No, they love visual novels. People don't want to. It's the
Weird, isn't it? Because people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't like visual novels. I don't like reading." I'm like, "You don't like reading?
yes.
You don't like stories?"
Right. It's the same thing with like foreign films. They're like, oh, I don't want to read, and it's like you adjust to it very quickly.
Subtitles are not
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
They really aren't.
Right. You're like you realize how fast you can read a sentence, which is very fast, and also how much of a screen you can see at one time, and it's a lot of the screen. Honestly, the whole of the screen actually.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, the subtitles are on the screen.
That is how subtitles work.
Right. They're not on like a second screen that you have to peek over to.
It's a lot easier than people make it sound sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So it's the same thing. Like they'll read like a lot of text in like any given RPG or most
Exactly.
games.
Which are just like subtitles for a game anyway, with no voice.
Right. But then if it's only reading, what are you doing?
Oh no, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know how to read books. I don't know how to read visual novels. Like
Visual novels are just comics, and everyone reads comics.
But comics are great.
Right. They're words and pictures.
It's like comics with so like what's not good about that? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a weird space because also the people are passionate are very passionate. You've got what your games in how many languages?
I don't even know at this point.
Yeah,
Most recent game, let me think. A Pet Shop After Dark. I released it in English and Japanese. That was me. Then I also had Korean, simplified Chinese, Turkish because the translator offered, and I was like, I might as well try Turkish
right.
as well, and Russian, and I think it was Brazilian Portuguese.
Okay, yeah, that's quite a few. You know,
I'm working on a couple more translations now. Just it's going slow.
right? Yeah, yeah. That's the one problem of all those words is you got to turn them into different words.
Yeah, sometimes I think it'd be nice to have like a visual novel with no text, just like visuals only, no
Yeah,
novel. See how I can go with that.
like a what's I think there's a word for that in terms
Music video?
a video. It's a video, a slideshow.
Yeah,
No,
a music video slideshow thing.
a picture book. I feel like there's a word for wordless comics, but I forget what it is.
Oh, if there is, I don't know.
Right, right, and that's also the fun thing about like maybe in Turkish there is a word for it.
Ooh, yeah.
I think a lot like translating words, especially like I think this is more specific to you even in the games that you're working on is the idea of like when you deal with things like gender and like
Yeah.
how do you translate that concept because it's so like mired in language.
So a lot of the issues that come up, say like in English, people are if you're selecting pronouns, if like which ones you want to use, a lot of
Yeah.
them don't work. I had this fun conversation with have you played Read Only Memories?
I have not.
So just as a quick explanation then, Read Only Memories is this game about like it's like a visual novel point and click adventure where at the beginning you get to choose your pronouns, right? So
Yeah.
in English, which the game was originally made in, it's I believe you get to choose he, she, or they. But it doesn't make sense to translate this into Japanese because pronouns aren't used as frequently in Japanese as in
Yeah.
English. Like people don't refer to me in third person ever
Right.
in daily life. Like nobody ever says like he or she or they, the equivalent in Japanese to me.
Yeah.
So making the same choice doesn't have the same weight to it.
Yeah, it's this whole like, and like it's very complicated. That's why I often like get like when people get very mired down in the language of everything.
Mm.
I go, if you go to a different country, all of this doesn't make sense anymore.
It's true.
Like,
It's true.
like these concepts sort of transcend English. Like the Romance languages, a lot of like those are heavily gendered in
Oh,
everything.
yeah, yeah. I had issues with so I have sometimes like in your non-gendered protagonist, right?
Yeah.
But then in translations, like people will tell me the translators like I need to have a gender for this adjective, so you must gender your protagonist. I'm like, but they're not gendered. I can't do that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's what you want to do on that is like, and there's usually like weird ways. Sometimes like I know for French, usually you have to have the adjective. If it has an E at the end, it's feminine. No E, it's not. And I've heard that in French, so that for non-binary options, you can have like a full stop before the E to be like either E or not E, but it's very new language. So
Yeah.
the equivalent of neopronouns in English, and a lot of people aren't familiar.
Right.
So you have to see if you want to do that in your game. You're making a very specific statement, and people are probably going to have to look it up on the internet to figure out what it means.
Right, they're gonna be like, is it like a emphasis, or is it like
Is it a spelling mistake?
right? Is it a long pause? Is it just like a stylistic quirk of the character?
Whereas in English, it was just like you leave it out and it's not a problem.
Right. Listen, English has a lot of other weird problems, but gendered language isn't one of them so much.
Until you need to use a pronoun, and someone's
Right.
like, dang.
Oh, those things so confusing. How do we use them? It's not like they're. It's not like they're very easy to use or anything, and very easy
People
to change.
use pronouns all the time in English.
Yeah.
I just think people don't realize it, and they're bad at understanding grammar, I guess.
Right. They're just like they need something to point at to complain about.
Mm.
and
I
be
think
like,
it's very cool that people can choose pronouns in games and stuff.
yeah,
Although I guess there's also the Nintendo way where you don't get to choose gender anymore. No gender for you. You only get to choose styles.
yes, that is.
No
I
gender.
it's always very interesting that it comes up. It's come up in a couple of games to bring it all back to Dragon Quest Builders again, um, where it clearly does. I am assuming that the developers like assume a male avatar because like
That's
the
Dragon Quest.
yeah, and like because there was like scenes where there was like you were like the romantic rival for female characters.
It's usually like you're either a male or a lesbian.
Yes, exactly. I remember when I played Dragon's Dogma, and I was very surprised that I was like, because I was playing as a cool tall lady, which is my kind of default video game character I make for some reason. It's like just a very tall lady. And she was like romancing a princess, or like you had like a secret affair with the princess or the queen. I forget her like official royal legacy. But it was like that's weird in a game, but it's like it's not forward thinking. It's they were assuming I was going to be a man.
It's like you have the choice to choose. You can
Right.
choose your gender, but not anything else related to how people treat you.
Yes, right. That's not intentional queerness on Capcom's part. That is.
It's just like we'll let you have the female character, just nothing else will ever change.
Yes, someone's like, I'm not making a prince character. You crazy? I'm not.
It's okay. You can be a man or a lesbian. Those
Yes.
are your two choices.
Exactly. But it's very much like asterisks over lesbian because they're like not really.
It's like
Right. I saw once, and I don't know if this is a real term or not, but it struck me as very true. At least, like even in the U.S., it struck me as a very true sort of like concept to some extent. It was this idea of, and this could be like a weird translation, but someone referred to this idea of business Yuri, the idea of alluded to same-sex relationships, whereas like they seem like you get the thrill of them being in a relationship, but also they're not really in a relationship because same-sex relationships aren't real.
Yeah, no. It's sort of like when you have lesbian media, which is supposedly lesbian, but it's only because men don't exist.
Yes.
Essentially in
Right.
the world, so
Right.
it's their only option.
That is
Of
my
course, they're all gay. There's no men.
right. That is my those my white whale of like as an extensive comic reader. I'm like, if I can find a manga that has same-sex relationships, and there is not a single gender, and there is like, a wide swath. It's not all men or all women, and they're not high school even. Imagine that.
Oh, that would be nice. When,
like that they're adults. It's not. I mean, because like even in the U.S. there was the idea of the stereotype. That thing's faded some down of gay until graduation sort of stuff. You experiment in college, as they say, but then you grow up and become a family man.
you grew up and then suddenly you turn straight. That's just how stuff works.
Right. Of course, you're just like. Yes, no, that was a thing. That was a dalliance I had because there's two options.
Mm-hmm.
There's not. It's not a large, complicated spectrum of expression.
Mm-hmm. It'd be. I would enjoy seeing a lot more adult queer relationships in media. That would be very nice.
Yeah. It's. And you can do it. You could just do it, I think. And that's the thing I realized. I realized that in high school when I watched the show 6 Feet Under, which has like, one of the protagonists is gay and there's gay characters in it. And it's like, oh, you can just do this. There's no rules. You don't have to like tiptoe around things. You don't have to work really hard to justify. It's like, no, you can just do it. If you're an adult making a piece of art, you can just do it.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, oh, two men kissed for one frame in a Disney movie.
Right, exactly. I'm like, you could just do it. No one stop. I guess the
money and time.
The Marvelification of media is stopping you, but
yeah,
like it exists, and that's like when people talk about like, oh, I can't believe, we're getting this Z-list character that's going to appear in one scene of the next Marvel movie. Is,
oh wow, the great queer representation
right,
that
this character that we pulled from the dregs of the comics, they're asexual, and it's like, there are people who make games and movies and books and comics everywhere who have
Marvel
yes
characters. That's the problem.
Yeah, right. Have you ever considered becoming a Marvel character?
If they would pay me for it, I'd love to.
Oh, I don't think they do that. From what I understand, they don't pay the people who make the characters.
I don't think they do, but that is another issue of comics industry.
Yes, that is a right of not getting.
Yeah, comics industry and rights of the authors are very terrible everywhere, it seems. So.
Yes, yeah, no, I don't know. You occasionally see a trademark, and you'll see, Akira Toriyama's name on the bottom of Dragon Ball Z Fighters or something, but I feel like those are special cases,
Yeah, no, unless you're like Sailor Moon or like that kind of level, your name isn't
right.
Like you don't get the money.
Yeah.
Mostly you sell off your rights once you sign once you're with a publishing company, so they get turns into a show, they get the money, turns into merch, they get the money. So like you don't really get much after that.
It's good to see it happens on both sides of the world.
Yeah, we're unified that way.
Beautiful. At least they, generally speaking, they don't exist as property that get exploited forever, because there's not not Shonen Jump or whatever is not the Marvel universe, except when it is.
Yeah,
for video games and other cross-media stuff.
There's a lot of Shonen Jump character fighting games. And
yeah, exactly.
I always think like, I guess that's cool for Shonen Jump. I hope it's cool for the people who are excited about their characters being in the game, but I also hope they are seeing a little bit of money from it, at least.
Yeah, I'm sure Toriyama gets a taste. Maybe not the Z-lister guy. Maybe.
Yeah. You get a lot more, I think, clout and the ability to fight for money when you are the creator of Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, you're right. When people just don't stop making it.
Yeah.
So in some way, that's a little bit better off than comics. I don't know how Jack Kirby did in his later life. I don't know how the Jack Kirby estate is doing.
Okay. I hope things are okay.
I don't think they are. I think all those people.
It's interesting though, also for like at least from what I know about American comics, that the writers change so often, but they keep the same characters.
Yes, it's very weird.
Like I understand. I guess people just don't want to branch out into new things.
Yeah.
But that's the same issue I think that exists with Marvel, where people will only watch a thing if it's Marvel, and they want more Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. As long as it's Marvel, they will watch it. But why can't you just have the same movie but under a completely different universe?
Yeah, it creates like these weird tonal shifts where you'll be like, I love this character and his stories for 20 issues, but then the writer changed and I hate them now.
You just have to wait until the writer changes. Like,
right, exactly. Yeah, they're like,
at that point, it just follow the original writer and let them write something they want. That's
usually what I do. That's usually my technique. Is like you don't follow characters, you follow writers.
Because that's what you like, isn't it? Like essentially, and I don't think people get that. People don't like Spider-Man specifically, or if they do like every iteration of Spider-Man, then I will concede the point. But usually, I don't think they like Spider-Man. They like the way the person created the stories for that specific 10 chapters of Spider-Man.
Right, yeah. And then maybe they like Spider-Man conceptually, But that doesn't mean you're going to like every Spider-Man story,
But I guess people don't like trying new stuff. So that's what we get. 20 Marvel movies? I don't even know how many there are.
There are a lot of
TV shows.
Yeah, now like once you factor in TV shows, I think there's nigh infinite. It's weird because like that is very much to do Andrew's comic talk, the TV shows is very much like the comics that I would like to read that Marvel makes,
Oh.
which is like weirder things for like off the beaten path characters that are just like smaller. They get more creative freedom because nobody cares about, Hawkeye or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, a lot of these are like quite literally like good individual. Like they're clearly coming from good individual runs of like Hawkeye. I think is mostly like that Matt Fraction Hawkeye, that Matt Fraction David. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Marvel comics. You tricked me into talking about comics, which happens very often.
Games and comics are very connected, though.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
it's sort of like fun media a lot of the time. It's just that games you have to have a controller and you have to have gameplay for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like they are both equally disrespected as art forms.
Very true. Very true.
They have that kind of same kind of like, oh, they're not real art, but they can be.
And also, people will only play the AAA level of anything.
Right.
Like of comics, people do the Marvel comics, or not really even the Marvel movies,
Right.
and they'll play Mario. Everything else is just like trash tier.
Yeah, and I'm a sicko who loves going to Zine Fest and like going to indie comic shows and like being able to just get like a bunch of weird self-published and small press books. But listen, part of me studying Japanese is so I can read indie stuff.
There's a lot of really good stuff online, and it's so much fun. There's a lot more fun happening online, I think, than in a lot of published stuff.
Yeah.
Or like, even just self-published stuff is really exciting.
Yeah, like I'll come across. That's how we were talking in the pre-show about Glacier Bay books.
Yes.
And they do a lot of like really good like independent small press kind of stuff, and like
it looks incredible. I'm like, I need to see how I can get this as well. I'm gonna look up the individual artists and check it out later.
They do sell it in Japan.
Oh.
They do. They do sell some, but I think they sell them at what's it called? What's the one with the hippo? Popotame.
The one with the hippo.
Yeah, Popotame, I think is what it is. It's like
okay.
I think they work with Glacier Bay.
I will find it.
Yeah, I got some stuff from them too, like ordered directly from them because they did like some self-published stuff, like translated into English. And I'm a real comics nut, and I like. I just want to be like, no, this is real comics. I'm looking for like because I think people too get too kind of caught up in the stereotype of what a country produces,
Yeah, I actually had this conversation very recently at the game event where I was talking to somebody about how people want specifically one type of game out of Japan and one type of media out of Japan, and anything else, then the people online in like the Western sphere will be like, you people in Japan don't make stuff like this.
Right, and I kind of go the opposite where I'm like, people in Japan, I want to see the people in Japan who aren't making stuff that just looks like the standard import stuff.
Yeah, like it's the equivalent of say like if somebody were in Japan and we're like, all American media is Marvel.
Right. If it's
not true.
If it's not Marvel, it's Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and anything else isn't American. If you make it, you are not a true American. You are probably actually like some other country's person.
Yeah, exactly. You are not really doing American. You're just pretending and ripping off some other country. And I think that's the other thing. People forget that like people in other countries watch movies from other countries as well.
And a lot of the times, because America makes so much media, it does get shown in other countries.
Right. Yeah, people forget that like America exports culture. That's what we export. Yes. And war. But the two
sometimes together when you get like military propaganda movies.
Exactly. Yeah, those are our main exports. For worse and for worse.
Yes.
Go USA. Never forget tomorrow. But what is it? Yeah, it's people. I was reading a comic by, I forget the artist's name, but in her like thing, it was a manga that was published by, what's it called, the bookshop in Toronto, The Beguiling, and she was talking about like watching Jan Svankmajer films. He does like gross stop motion stuff. And it's like, you forget that countries aren't monoliths. It's why I did the Indie Sushin episode or issue.
It was really cool. No, I really enjoyed looking at that and seeing like a lot of Unity one room devs and like just there's so much stuff that people are making.
Right.
So like this is not set in Japan, so I guess you are not
right
a Japanese dev, right? Like,
right.
Sort of stuff.
There's only one person in that style who one person, I think, in that whole bundle has maybe two that have a style that you would look at and go, oh, Japanese, you know. But otherwise, it's just like, oh no, people can make things any kind of way, you know.
Yeah, like I don't play American games and think there's no. I'm trying to think of a stereotypical American thing now. Hot dogs in this game.
Yes.
I don't know. Like it's just as weird. It's not like there's no hot dogs in this game. It can't be an American. It makes no sense.
I feel vindicated because hot dogs are what I default to as an American thing. So I'm glad you're backing me up here.
It's either hot dogs or like steak is all I got. Sorry.
No, those feel American. I love it. Also, like people, it's the same thing. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of really weird American foods that people would be.
For sure.
And in Japan, you're like,
but like, it's just like I guess it's the equivalent of like where people sometimes you're like, oh, this is so weird, I wouldn't eat it, and then that's how they feel about media as well. But it just, don't knock it till you tried it.
Yes, right. They'll say, oh, this thing is so weird, raw fish, and then they'll eat like a big.
Like, oh, that was good.
Right, or then they'll turn around and eat just like this weird bowl of beef and macaroni and eat like chili mac and whatever. Like they'll eat a hot dog, which is
if you think about it, it's a bit like
real like viscera and just like it's the gunk. We put the gunk in a tube.
Well, yeah, no, it's stuff like that. Wherein like even from America, I'm sure everyone is absorbing stuff like from Japan, from other countries.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean like there's any one true Americana game.
Right.
So people have a lot of different roots. People come from multiple countries. People have lived in different places. So I think it's good that we get stuff with a lot of influence from everywhere.
Right. I think that's the beauty of this global connected world, is that people can influence each other.
Exactly.
And it's easier now than ever to get like you don't just have to go down to your art house cinema if you want to see a foreign film. You can subscribe to the Criterion channel. I mean, like even like Tubi has probably got your back. It's just like there are streaming services all over. They just have,
and there's just people sharing their stuff online for free for you to enjoy from anywhere.
Right, and you don't have to like worry about the language barrier. I didn't translate any of those sushi games, and I said, don't worry about translating any of them. A lot of them are playable enough in English, but like you kind of get the ideas.
I think it's actually very good for people to be in environments where they don't understand the language, because it helps them realize, oh, this is what it feels like to not be part of the majority.
Right. Here's it's why it's always so confusing with how people sometimes peak ignorance is assuming someone's stupid because they can't speak English well.
If they're not speaking well, it probably means they speak something else very well.
Yes, I bet you cannot speak a word of whatever language they can speak fluently. And they are meeting you the best they can in English, I
really actually enjoy it when games are very specifically like not easily understood from outside of the culture.
Yes, yeah. Or games that feel very specifically, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a there's something to experiencing a different culture that is not your own. You know, there's a
Like a really cool window. Like
right,
so like for me personally, I have very like multiple roots. I have technically 3 passports, but only 2 citizenships. It's like weird and complicated. So when I
right,
make games, it's from a very specific, this is my life and these are the experiences that I have. And I don't expect everyone to empathize at all. But I want people to play and be like, huh, that's a different viewpoint that I never thought of, and that's how people think somewhere, and that's cool. But that's
right.
it.
Yeah, that's it's a very weird example, but I think a lot about one of the actors in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia had said,
Mm.
I don't want my character to be like relatable. I just want you to understand him. You know where he's coming
No, but
from.
yes.
Yeah,
No, that's great. I get that a lot. No, I really empathize with that.
and it's like you don't have to like fully understand someone's experience. You just have to
Mm.
like you kind of got to get that they're another person and kind of get what they're going through.
Mm-mm.
And maybe it's probably not something you'll ever go through, you know?
Mm.
Or you may not meet someone who goes through, but you can still like, it's the beauty of art, you know?
Yeah, and maybe you'll be like, this character in whatever media at this point did something like this, and that one experience can come back to you at some other point.
Right, right. Listen, we all, it's easy to forget that every other human being on the planet also lives 24 hours in a day and is usually
Yes.
awake for 16 of them
Yes.
and have these massive lived experiences. And art is like a nice way we kind of condense those experiences.
Yeah, and it's a good way to share, I think. And that's, I think, part of my issue sometimes with games that are made for the sake of being games. I
Right.
don't feel the point of them a lot of the times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there can be plenty of fun, like, games as, like, game experiences, you know?
Mhm.
In the same way, like, chess can be fun, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, I play a lot of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
But, that's just a game. I mean, technically there's story there, but, like, I couldn't tell you it. But like it's a game, but it's also I go to it for a different thing, you know.
Yes, exactly. But I guess that's part of the argument where people are like, games are games or games are art,
Yeah,
which is what you want out of it.
right. It's like you go to it for, and you can have both. You can play
Yeah.
Fortnite, and then you can like sit down with a contemplative art game on itch, you know. And
It's
you can,
just like we can have those two coexisting and people don't have to argue about only one can exist.
right, right. It comes back to the idea of me naming this thing Indiepocalypse, you know. Uh,
Too
uh,
many indies, we all die.
right, exactly.
It works. Like,
But like I always tell people, before video games were even invented, there was too much art to experience in our lifetime.
there was always too much stuff. It's just that a lot of it is easier for us to access now.
Yeah, right. And it's like I could never play a video game for the rest of my life, and I would never read every single book. I could never watch every single movie. It's all about our curated experience, and I think part of it is it's very hard to not. I saw someone once that has said having niche tastes is like it's kind of like a purposefully self-exclusionary practice in a way because it becomes harder to talk to people. Because it's like, oh, it's easy to say like I know Fortnite, you know, and you can talk to other people who also like Fortnite because billions of people play it. But it's harder to be like, hey, I played this small game, this game you've never heard of on itch, or even if I was like, oh, NPC Casey, like, are they a new character in Fortnite? And you're like, no, they're just developed. They've made like 30 games or whatever. They make a lot of stuff. And they're like, never
Are
heard
they
of
in
them.
Fortnite though?
Right? Are they in Fortnite? Like, like someone plays one of your games, they get very excited, but then they can explain it to someone, but it's not the same as having someone to talk to about it with,
Mm.
which is like that weird thing. It's the tricky thing about niche art.
I think it's also just how people very much tie the media they consume to their identity.
Yes.
So if I am a Fortnite lover, I can only communicate with other people who like Fortnite. And if they don't like Fortnite, I guess we can't be friends anymore.
Every
Stuff like
time,
that.
every time I see someone's Twitter bio and it says multi fandom, it
Do not
shaves
interact.
it shaves years off my life. And I go, what does that even
You can
mean?
like one thing at once. It's just like you don't have to be one thing.
I'm sorry, I'm only in the John Cassavetes fandom. Check out my Peter Falk fan cams. But it's just a very different way of looking at art.
Yeah.
And I like to think that all those people are between the age of 13 and 19.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, no, I really hope so. I hope that they can enjoy lots of things in their fully fledged adult
Yeah.
lives.
I hope I don't read that person's Twitter bio and get to the end and it says 33. I go, uh-oh. That's mean. I don't want to pick on adult children.
But it's definitely a very different way of approaching
Yeah.
games as well. Like obviously here, knowing Indiepocalypse and being on it at all, you are like shown so much different media.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like I think my mom, the only game she plays is Pokemon Go.
Right. Right. Yes.
And she doesn't know the original Pokemon games. She only plays Pokemon Go.
Right. Right. There's these are fun little monsters they created for her phone.
Yeah, and that's the only frame of reference she has for games. So it's just like games are the thing that you play on your phone.
Yeah.
That's it. There aren't computer games. You don't really play console games. Like they exist, but not in a way that matters to her.
Yeah. The idea of everybody playing them is sort of brand new. Like they're like my new supervisor is a bit older than me, and she has like a little Crash Bandicoot thing on her desk, like on one of her things. She's like, you know who that is? I'm like, I know Crash Bandicoot, but like I'm like it was me realizing like, oh no, there is like we're approaching where like everybody is kind of playing video games now, or everyone grew up with them. Even if she's like 20 years older than me, because I was a kid, but then like I'm an adult playing video games, so she was an adult playing video games.
That's true.
And it's like it's just becoming more common, like at least like in the U.S. where it's like I've noticed it recently. This is definitely a U.S. thing, but like everybody has tattoos now. Where like previously it was like a thing you just did not. You saw like it was a signifier of a type of person,
Yeah, so tattoos are not a thing here.
Yes, you're right.
I feel like there's also a similar trend where like a lot of people maybe growing up, they would have been made fun of for having very specific like anime manga tastes.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more like mainstream enough that people will talk about it and not be like ostracized.
Yes. The nerd has his day finally.
Yes. But only for specific tastes.
Yes, right. Only for isekai.
And you can only talk like if you like this, you're okay. But if you like this kind of media, you are still a nerd.
Can you do me a favor and an across the pond favor for me? Can you tell them to stop making isekai? Just,
I think the problem with isekai is that people think of it as a very specific thing where you always have the one male hero who is in the original world. I mean, the current world.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it like in a mean way, but kind of a loser.
Yes.
But then you bring them to a fantasy world, and then suddenly you get to be like powerful, and like I understand why people like that. It's a power fantasy.
Yeah.
It's very fun for them. But you don't have to make it an isekai to do that.
Right. It's also I always think about whenever people yell about localization in the U.S. They're like, oh, I can't believe they ruined the localization to this. And then I'll look at what they were yelling about, and it was like Isekai Kun's quest for boobs. And I'm like, who is the person that is like, who's the translator that's working to sanitize this? I'm like, it's beyond saving. Don't worry about it.
I don't know. My favorite
Yeah.
thing about like isekai is like anything can be an isekai. People
Yeah.
argue like Alice in Wonderland is an isekai. It just doesn't fit in the
Yeah.
current common trappings of
Right,
it.
right. Wizard of Oz is that
Yeah.
not an isekai? Yeah, yeah. It's a very, but like, yeah, it's like you said, the modern genre interpretation of it.
It's just the issue where people think of isekai and they think of the ones that they've seen, and so they think, oh, it must have the loser hero. It
Yeah.
must have all the girls falling in love with him. But that's not specifically isekai.
No,
It's
that's
the same
just
thing where people will be like, RPGs have to have a hero, but they don't really, do they?
no. They don't have to be all. They don't even have to be turn based anymore. They don't have to be fantasy heroes find the sword and kill the Dark Lord. But they can do a lot. Listen, I mean, I don't need to tell you. There was RPGs can be anything, you know. But
I would like to see a little bit more variety in isekai as well. And I think there is a lot. It's just that it's not.
it doesn't make it over here,
popularized.
at least. It's not what makes the big bucks. But also, I've really there's a second genre that I don't know if there's a word for it. Maybe there is a word for it. I've noticed there's a genre of anime manga where like the female character is front and center for everything, like on the promotion material, on all the covers, but the lead character is a guy. And
I don't know what you would call it, but I would say marketing.
yes, right. Or it's like a very milquetoast protagonist because the protagonist is me.
It's what I would say is the dating sim visual novel approach.
Yeah.
Eroge, where you never see the main character in anything. It's only the girls that you can date because you don't want to see the male character. One thing that's like, I don't know if it's actually true, but one thing that's talked about and like shared online as a visual novel thing is that in eroge or male protagonist dating sims, you aren't supposed to have a black loading screen. And the reason is because if you have a black loading screen, when you see the loading screen, you see your own face.
Yes. There was actually a game in Indiepocalypse based on using a black screen to draw your self-portrait.
Yeah, but it's stuff like that where
right.
you never see you in the marketing because nobody wants to see yourself. You only want to see the cute girls you can date or whatever.
Right. Do you want to see yourself hunched over 6 hours in? Like, it's enough to get a fella isekai'd. But anyway, jokes aside, I think we should. We're approaching like an hour-ish here, which is why I try to keep them when I have these solo sessions, not run it too long. Because I could talk forever. That's how I am as a person. And I feel like we could just keep on going, but they have to be kept reasonably lengthy, you know.
Like it's late night too late.
Yeah, right. No, it's only 8 o'clock for me. I could keep going. It's interesting, kind of like you were saying about, like, oh, you know, my mom only plays Pokemon. I think, like, in terms of like creators, I'm seeing like a new generation of like creators coming up that are working in this kind of like small scale indie space. And it's kind of like when I go to like an indie comic show and I bemoan that there's nothing like this in games, I think it's because it's like forming right now.
I think we have itch, and it's still. I mean, it's not like super new, but it still feels new to a lot of people.
Yeah, like those charity bundles kind of drove people there, but then also it's kind of like I always feel weird about those things, you know.
Charity bundles where I think it's amazing that itch has participated in them and it's great, but I think it is sad that indie creators feel like they must give up their works for nothing and devalue them.
Right. Like that's the only way you can. And then more recently they've gotten even weirder because they're like, we only want paid games.
Like, I understand,
Yeah.
but I understand the thought behind it, and I think it is great, again, that money is going to charity.
Right.
Why are we expecting the indie creators to do this, and nobody's being like, hey, Nintendo, give up Splatoon 3 for free and give up all your money to send to war-torn countries?
Right. It's the thing people forget in the internet nowadays, that things can be both good and bad at the same time.
Yes.
Things can have good and bad.
There's nuance in everything.
Yes. Yeah, the chat is pointless. I thank you for the person pointing out in the chat. It's kind of pointless here. Occasionally I will answer questions if I know the person I'm talking to, but this is generally a radio show. I am definitely not going to refer to people by name, and I'm not going to be like, hey, how you doing?
It's okay. I enjoy this. I think I enjoy this kind of experience more.
Yeah.
I don't think that everything has to be interactive.
No, I don't think so either. This is, in my mind, we are sitting across a table at a radio show, and there are people in their cars listening to us right now, but they can't yell through their speakers and we can't hear them.
They can yell, but we don't hear them.
Yeah. They'd be like, I liked Fortnite.
That's great for you, if anybody is out there who likes Fortnite.
Yeah, listen, you like whatever you like. I'm not going to...
Shout out to all the Fortnite players out there.
Build those forts. I actually
have never played Fortnite, so I don't know if that's actually what you do.
I'll meet you in Tomato Town.
Is that a real place in Fortnite?
It is, because there was a song a kid made. Like, he made a fun parody song for Fortnite. And I remember all I remember from the song is that they just blew up Tomato Town, I think. Anyway, I think they have all the characters in it now.
Okay.
That's what I know about Fortnite. They have all the characters in it.
Mm.
All the ones you know.
Yeah, I know there's Naruto in it, so that's all I know about Fortnite.
Yeah, he can fight John Cena. He can get a gun and shoot John Cena with it.
See, I don't know if that's true or not.
It is true. That is true.
Oh, okay.
And then, but then Naruto gets shot by Goku, who then dabs on him.
Fortnite cinematic universe.
It's really the pinnacle of culture.
I'll take your word for it.
I've never played it either. Never installed it. I'll live a better life. I'll live a better life with it. Anyway, I see this is the thing where I said I was going to close the show and then I don't close the show. A staple of Indiepocalypse Radio. But what I was saying is, and that's why it's exciting to have you on the show and to have you in the zine at all, because I think you are very much of, I think, like this vanguard of this new generation of indie devs, where it's like,
I think that exciting, but I think it's very cool that visual novels are very easy to make. I want everyone to make them.
Yes.
That's the most, when I make games, that's my main goal. I have stuff to say, but I want more people to make the kind of small things that I make. So I want to be I have no game dev background, at all. I don't really know programming. I taught myself. Anybody can do this. Anybody can make their own visual novels and just throw out stuff onto it for free. It's amazing. It's a cool site.
Yeah, when people share things about video game making is so hard, I go, it isn't though.
It doesn't have to be.
No, the beleaguered game dev, when I see people who are like, oh, I've never seen this game 7 years ago, I think, oh my god.
Oh gosh, I'd cry if I was just no, you can just put something together over a weekend. It doesn't have to be polished. It can be terrible if you think it is.
Right.
But that's okay.
And you can make something over a weekend that ends up being polished, even.
Yeah, it's up to you. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Just put it out there.
There are now, there's so many, I don't know how to count anymore. There's 19-ish games made for Indiepocalypse, and those games were all made in 3 months maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good games in there. Folks, the games are good. You don't have to spend so when people be like, oh, game dev is a slog, it's a chore,
you don't have to play.
Yeah, no.
Don't make yourself suffer.
Right. A game doesn't have to be forever. You can make, I search for specifically developers to commission to developers who do work very quickly. So like your page has like, you know, what was it? A lot of, I said 30, but it's a lot of games. But like they're not all like super long, you know. They don't have to be like huge things.
Actually nice to have
Right.
games that end.
Yes. Yeah. I like being able to like when I pick up like if I pick up a comic, they don't all have to be 600-page omnibuses, you
Oh
know.
gosh, yeah, no.
No, I can like go to an indie show and pick up like a 6-page book and go, yeah, this was good.
Same, like you, instead of like one 600-page book, you can get 106-page books.
Yes, exactly, and get 600 different experiences.
Yeah, and they'd be so much more fun a lot of the times.
Yeah, listen, RenPy is easy to use. Bitsy is easy to use.
It's free. Bitsy is free. RedPie is free. Like
Yeah,
it's so easy to start.
yeah. I think anyone who is talking about the best games going on right now that isn't talking about Bitsy, you're just
I
not.
love Bitsy so much. Ah.
The best games of this, the best games being made right now are being made in. Some of them are being made in Bitsy. You know.
No, it's incredible, and like the newest, not newest, a more recent update. Now you can have music right in the editor. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and there are so many people like there's like what like Bipsy and Bitsy 3D and all
Bitsy
these.
is also fun. There's so much out there. It's
Yeah.
so good.
I my Indiepocalypse All Stars, like one of them is, you know, Marutsuki's, I always say that wrong, Closet, which is like top. It's I mean, it does Bitsy 3D stuff too, but that's basically a Bitsy game. It's one of the
Like,
best.
even in 3D, it doesn't make it difficult to use, so you
Yeah,
can
right.
easily do something in 3D. Isn't that very cool?
Right, right. Because the people making those things are Bitsy developers, and what they like about Bitsy is that it's easy to use.
And it's very good for iterating short experiences.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you don't need art or like crazy graphics to tell what you want to say.
Yeah, there was what is it called? The line that was just to say, this was just to say, the plum poem. Someone had made a Bitsy of that, of this is just to say. Someone had made a Bitsy of that plum poem, and it's like 10 seconds long. And I think about it a lot. I share it with friends.
I think that's the really cool thing about Bitsy. Like a lot of them are just incredibly short experiences, but they stick with you.
Right, right. Because folks, poems are very short.
Well, that is true. Like
Yeah.
games poetry is a very cool idea.
Yeah, yeah. This idea of like games can be of any length and any form. And I think that kind of like imagine trying to tell your Springs trilogy story within like the framework of like a 16-hour third-person shooter.
Oh God!
How would
you
you
have to shoot down the doors to go inside the hot springs?
Right, exactly, right. You shoot a bunch of zombies, then you get to the hot springs and you do your visual novel section.
You have to have the gameplay in between, and it's you unlock the stories by random.
Right, right. You unlock
item drops.
You unlock the stories by killing enough monsters.
Kill 10 zombies to get to the next story point.
That's it's kind of what it is.
But it often
Yeah.
is that way
Yeah.
in games, isn't it? You just have to arbitrarily do some gameplay before you can read the visual novel.
Right, right. And they feel so divorced often from each other.
Yeah, which is a lot. Same. I already said it, but a lot
Yeah.
of these games could just be visual novels. But
Right, right. It doesn't need to also be like an escape room or like a dungeon
Exactly.
crawler, or that's just because you want to like. That's what makes me feel. My most cynical point is what makes me feel like, oh, they're just doing a visual novel so they can have people thirsty for characters on social media because that plays better.
It does make it a lot easier, I think, than just showing screenshots of a hotel sim. If you,
Yeah,
as an
right.
example.
But if you had like a lot of hot protagonists,
Yeah.
people share them a lot better. So listen, do what you do to get yours if that's what you got to do. But respect visual novels a little bit more.
It's okay to call your games a visual novel. It's okay.
I know it's a scary word. I'm pasting in the chat
Ooh,
the game I was talking about. This is just to say,
I'm
it's
going to check that out because I don't think I've seen it.
it's very good. It only takes like it's already done. I already finished it in the period we were talking to each other. It's very cool. I love it a lot. It's one of those things that it's like it's very much an in joke from like a very specific time in the internet, you know. But if
And
you
it's a
get
very specific audience, which is the cool.
yeah, I point to my often standby example of I use the Mountain Goat song dance music is about a minute and a half long, but it tells a greater story than I've like got in like you know multi season TV shows. You know, it's all about how you like evoke ideas and kind of get these ideas across.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, oh, but here let me try this again. Let me trying to close the show again, but I wanted to make sure that I was like, hey, you know, thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I have to. Thanks for waking up to do the show.
It's okay. I should probably wake up earlier anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, I schedule these more infrequently because I have it basically just covers like you know East Asia and Australia, New Zealand. I have to do this time zone for,
Yeah.
which comes up less often. And sometimes people don't tell me, and they're like, "It's 3 a.m." I'm like, "What are you doing awake on my show?" But NPC Casey, thank you for being on the show. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you on the zine. Glad to have just making games unrelated to anything I'm doing. You know, glad that you're making games.
Very good, and you should all check it out.
Yes. Where can people find your stuff if they're like, oh, this stuff sounds very cool. I like the sound of this dev. I like visual novels.
You can find my stuff on itch.io. Everything I make is on itch. Sometimes on other stores, but itch is the best store. So check me out on itch.
And that is for people listening. That's npckc.itch.io. It's what you think it is. You've got like you've also done the thing that I encourage people to do is have your own website, which is exactly what you think it is. Well, it's not exactly because it's .site, not .com, but same idea.
Pump more money. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I pay those .com big bucks. But
opening up the wallet strings.
Yes, I can't believe I was very surprised I could get Indiepocalypse.com. I feel like somebody would have been sitting on that at this point.
Huh.
But it was wide open. But anyway, you know, go there, get a piece of different people's experiences, explore personal stories, get a little scared, baby.
It's like my newest game is like technically horror, but there's no jump scares, there's no gore. It's horror for people who are scared of horror.
Yes, so get yourself kind of like get your foot in the water for horror of the idea of dread, perhaps.
Yes.
and play these games. You know, this is you've got a lot of stuff going on, and I encourage people to check it out. I always even the people who don't need my help, or even the people who are doing much better than me, I always feel like obligated. Like I got to help everyone who I put through this, who walks us through the Indiepocalypse doors. You know, it's this weird anxiety that I put onto myself.
But Indiepocalypse is honestly already helping so much people. I've heard from like other people who've had the opportunity to be shown in Indiepocalypse, and because Andrew pays everyone who goes into it, and it's like the first money people make off their games ever.
Yes,
and it's so cool having that experience.
it's a scary number of people have told me the money I've given them is the most money they've made off of games.
And it's really encouraging. So I think I'm really glad that Indiepocalypse is still going after, what is it, 1.5 years?
No, 2.5 years.
2.5 years, dang. So it's just like
32
really
issues. 32 months straight.
Dang, almost 3 years. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. The one I was talking about, I think we were talking about, I can't remember at this point if it was pre-show or not, but the one that I'm working in 2023, I'm working on year 3 of Indiepocalypse.
Congratulations.
There is a developer and a cover artist lined up for year 3 of Indiepocalypse. So that's what it is. It's a train that I don't know how to stop anymore.
I hope it keeps going.
Me too. Me too. I hope to bring it around the world. I hope to, because it's, folks, you find a lot of pockets. If you go to the map, if you go to my website and look at the map, you'll see it's all over the place. The most recent cover artist was actually also a Japanese artist. And these are just people I just find on the internet. There's it's everywhere, every country, every continent, except any indie game developers. I'm pointing to my unplugged webcam as if people can see me. If you live in Antarctica, make a game and send it to Indiepocalypse.
That would be very cool.
So I can
Indiepocalypse every continent.
Yes, so I don't have to put the asterisks on it anymore. I can say there's been games from every continent.
Minus Antarctica.
But no, it's very cool. I get very. It feels very weird to promote this thing because it feels like I'm just selling something, but I'm just very excited about the people who make these games. And I love their work. Like we were talking about Taylor McHugh. I just that is someone whose work I think should be super. It feels like some of the best games being I'm not going to say the full name of the game this episode because this has been a very clean episode from my mouth. But he Taylor McHugh's most recent game I think is one of the best games of the year, and we'll continue. It feels canonical, It feels that good. So, but that's just me rambling for a moment.
It would be very cool to have more spaces where these games like these are shown and lauded.
Yeah. There's because I do not mean this. I mean this in the most complimentary way possible. That your games don't show very well on the E3 stage.
It is true. It is I completely understand and I completely agree.
Yeah. They do they even show well in I guess you don't have enough animals trading sticks for them to be in the wholesome showcases.
I have my own thoughts on wholesome directs and showcase things, but I will say here that I don't think my games are wholesome. I don't think they fit the vibe very well. I don't want people to come in and be wholesome because they will probably feel a little bit uncomfortable afterwards.
Yes, yeah, I played. I recently played Perfect Tides, which I love a lot, and I think that game is wholesome in a lot of ways too, even though it's incredibly messy. But there's wholesomeness within the messiness of humanity.
Yeah, no, I think messy games are good, and I think we should have more of them. And I think I'm happy that people enjoy wholesome games, and they have a specific vibe they have. But I do hope that people can be more this game may have the trappings of what I think would be a wholesome game, but be okay if the game goes outside of that emotionally.
Right? Yeah. People are complicated, and I like seeing people's complications.
Okay.
Anyway, this is. I've brought out the chalkboard. I'm doing Indiepocalypse Radio outro take 3.
Yes.
Thank you for being here so much. You know where you can find your stuff. I already said we can find that stuff. Where you can find Indiepocalypse, you go to indiepocalypse.com. That's where you buy it. You can also go to what's it called? indiepocalypse.com/Patreon if you want to subscribe to the game, to it. If you like don't want to be bothered to buy it every month, but still want to get it. If you checked into this show late and you're like, oh, these people seem like they were having such a nice conversation, but I missed the first hour of it. You can get the radio show the Monday after at any tier on the Indiepocalypse Patreon. And at the $5, you get just the commissioned games, where I started off with what I refer to as, indie dev superstars, if you will, in my mind. But it turns out that is like a very niche, a very small field of people who are like working in this kind of like recognized, more recognized than me, but also not like, $1 million budget kind of stuff. It's a very growing field of. You and I talked about this kind of semi-public privately in the way that is referring to each other on Twitter, and how I'm looking for the English version of the Dojin game.
Yeah.
That
like not hobbyist, but like a little bit beyond hobbyist, but not professional.
Right. Uminek. Dojin games.
Yeah.
Toho. Dojin games. But
everything can be Dojin.
Exactly. And there's no good English word for that quite yet. Mm-hmm. And I kind of
just readopt indie.
Yeah.
Indiepocalypse will be that.
I'll just keep saying I'm using alternative right now.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
I'm gonna sit with that for a little while until I get sick of it, and then move to something else. If you're a developer and is like, wow, these sound cool, I got inspired by NPC Casey's talk about making visual novels. I want to make a visual novel someday, and I want to get into Indiepocalypse someday. I want to make $20. You can do that if you go to indiepocalypse.com/submit if you make a game, and if you don't get in, that's all right. Sometimes you don't make good games. I make bad games sometimes. A lot of times I make bad games. Plenty of people can make bad games, or games you don't like, or games that don't resonate with people. And it just happens. But the important thing is you don't give up, I guess.
Cool to make bad games as well. Bad games are also good, I think.
Yeah, right. Yes, yeah. Listen, there is a if it's coming from a place like a place of personal passion, I think it's very hard to make. I think it's a lot harder to make a bad piece of art. Mm. I think the worst art comes from when you're looking at Mario and doing find and replace with your own character, because then you're not like making a thing that comes from you, and it kind of loses. Like the worst bad art in terms of like your classics, the rooms, are coming from clearly a person's personal vision. That makes it like it's very poorly executed, but it's something. And make art that is something, perhaps. That's it. I'm closing the show down. That's it. We're done. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for chatting. Thanks for. Oops. Where are my windows? Oh, I know why. I'm like, I didn't change anything yet. I'm gonna leave you with the song that I always leave with, the outro song, Imposter Syndrome. Goodbye, Cindy Gish. There we go.